Hello everyone, this is AJ and welcome back to the channel and welcome to episode 2 of A Tangled Web. This is my retrospective review series of the Spider-Man films. Today I'm going to be looking at Spider-Man 2. Yes, so before I begin, if you're new to the channel, then welcome. If you're returning, then welcome back to the channel. Yeah, so this is a series where I'm looking at and reviewing all of the Spider-Man films in the lead up to the release of No Way Home. As you know, we're getting it very soon, so I thought, why not go back, look at all the Spider-Man films, review them retrospectively, and then do a ranking for them. And then I'll be going out to see the new film and I'll give my review on that. So today I'm going to be taking a look at Spider-Man 2. Yes, Sam Raimi's second Spider-Man film. So this film was released here in the UK on the 16th of July of 2004 with a PG rating and a runtime of 2 hours and 7 minutes, about 5 minutes longer than that first film. Sam Raimi returned as director, and on this one he was given a budget of $200 million. So a bit of an up from last time by about $20 million. Worldwide, this film went on to earn $788 million. So a bit of a decrease on the last film, but thusly still a magnificent sum of money for this series and for Sony Pictures. This film came from a screenplay by Alfred Go. So a different screenplay writer than the first film. But we'll get into that in a little bit. Music again was done by Danny Elfman. And Tobey Maguire returned in the starring role of Peter Parker, aka your friendly neighbourhood Spider-Man. Kirsten Dunst returns as MJ. Alfred Molina has been cast as Doc Ock, Dr. Octavius, Dr. Octopus. James Franco returns as Harry Osborn, the son of Norman Osborn, who died in the previous film. J.K. Simmons returns in a scene-stealing role as J. Jonah Jameson. You have cameo appearances by Willem Dafoe, again as Norman Osborn. Bruce Campbell, he did have a cameo in the first film, and he cameos in this one, and he's the only person who gets the better of Spider-Man, Peter Parker. Yes, watch yourself with him, Peter. So the story for this film catches up with Peter 2 years after the events of the last Spider-Man film. Now, when we left Peter in the last Spider-Man film, Mary Jane had declared her love for him, and he said, "I don't love you." He was lying to her, but he was doing it to protect her. It was a very brave place to leave the film on this sort of a bit of a downer, and it worked wonderfully for it. So this film, like I said, catches up 2 years later. Mary Jane is now a successful, in her own right, successful actress, and she's also on billboards advertising perfumes, this sort of thing. So she's made it. Peter himself is working as a delivery driver for pizza on a little motorbike, as well as snapping photos of Spider-Man for the Daily Bugle. Peter's moved out of his aunt's place. He's living in a sort of grotty little flat in this complex where he's behind on his rent, and we're introduced to these characters that live in this place as well. Sort of like a family. There's a family that live there, and we'll come into that. So Peter's introduced to the character of Doc Octavius, and he's by James Franco, because Dr. Octavius is performing these experiments, being funded by Oscorp, now run by Harry Osborn after his father's death. He's introduced to Peter. They get on extremely well. They've got a mutual respect for one another. Dr. Octavius performs this experiment where he's attached to his octopus arms, and it goes awry, like what you'd expect, and there's an inhibitor chip that stops the arms that are run by an artificial intelligence taking over him so that he can control the arms and not the other way around. In the accident, the inhibitor chip gets fried, and thusly the mechanical arms sort of take over him and turn him bad, so to speak. It takes Peter Parker to have to go on his journey and sort these problems out. As the film progresses, we've got a subplot whereby Peter loses his powers. Now, this is done in such a way that it's kind of a commentary on male sexual inadequacies, the inability to perform. There's a sort of performance anxiety, should we speak, that Peter starts suffering, and he starts firing blanks. He can't fire his webs. Read into it what you will. Now, this is a fantastic film. I can't tell you enough how good this is. I mean, I felt that the first Spider-Man film was rather clunky. It's a good film, don't get me wrong, but it's clunky. Sam Raimi's direction is good, but it's not great. In this film, Sam Raimi's obviously come off the back of that and learnt a lot and brought it into the making of this film. The film's got a better tone, it flows better. The writing is better in this film, and the dialogue is better. The emotional scenes are fantastic. The funny scenes are great. You do have a mix of the lot in here. Now, there are a few scenes, standout scenes, and there are other scenes that drop the ball a bit. You've got the train scene. This is fantastic. Fantastic stuff where Peter's preventing this train from crashing, and subsequently gets stopped from falling by all the people of New York City, and they carry him through the train. This is a bit of a homage to the first film with the scene off of the bridge where everyone's sort of riling together to help Peter, and you're not going to do this against New York City. And in this, everyone sort of comes together to keep his identity a secret. It's a fantastically well written scene and very emotional. There's another scene which doesn't work so well, where Peter's in a cafe with MJ, and she's about to kiss him, and a car gets flung through the window. His spider sense kicks in. He saves her, just with the tyre of the car flying over him, just narrowly missing their heads. Fantastic looking scene, don't get me wrong, but narratively speaking, the scene doesn't work. The writing at this point sort of takes a leap, right? Because narratively, Doc Ock is there to get Peter to take him to Harry Osborn. Dr. Octopus doesn't know that Peter is Spider-Man. Thusly, throwing this car through, he's thrown it at what he believes to be just genuinely normal people. It would have killed them. You wouldn't have been jumping out of the way of it. You would have been splattered like a bug, like a spider underfoot. Yeah, so it doesn't particularly work. But that being said, that's a nitpick. The film, for the most part, is well written. It's it's the special effects are upped, definitely. There's CGI scenes where you're using CGI for these characters, but they look fantastic. They look a step up from the first film, definitely a step up from something like what Blade 2 gives you. The final scene of the film where Peter's swinging through with the fire trucks driving along, that does look very computer animated. It looks almost like toy trucks and toy helicopters. That scene's not so great. Danny Elfman's score for the film, again, is wonderful, with sprinklings of Batman in there. There are cues in the music that you wouldn't feel out of place in a Batman film. But ultimately, it's fantastic for this film. The opening of the film, the title sequence for the film, gives you a recap of the first film, all in this fantastic art style with all these scenes that are sort of painted pictures, and it looks fantastic, and it takes you through all the memories that you have of that first film. So all in all, a really, really good film. So yeah, this film, it's fantastic. It touches on themes, like I said, of male sexual inadequacy, but it touches on themes of friendship and of distrust, all this sort of stuff. You've got Harry Osborn, you've got his relationship with Peter is so complex in that he he's his best friend, and he knows he's his best friend, but yet he resents him for knowing, in his eyes, who Spider-Man is, not telling him who Spider-Man is, because obviously Peter's the one who takes the photos of Spider-Man for the papers, and Harry knows this, but Harry thinks Spider-Man has killed Norman Osborn. So Harry goes on this journey of hatred and distrust, and it starts eking away at him and eating away at him from the first film when they were great friends, but then they had the issues with Mary Jane. Then you come into this film, and even though they're still friends and they want to be friends, this distrust ekes away at Harry, and by the end of the film, subsequently, sees the opportunity for him. He finds out that his father is the Green Goblin, and thusly goes on. It's his first steps towards this journey of him taking on the mantle of that role. So again, a fantastic a through story of connective tissue for this character and this character's arc. The storyline between Peter and Mary Jane, again, fantastic, carrying on from that first film. This film doesn't, these films don't rush this relationship between these two characters. It's taken 2 films for them to get together, which is at the end of this film. And you've got this wonderfully shot scene with Mary Jane running through like this sort of park, past this fountain and that, in a wedding dress, where she's abandoned her wedding to J. Jonah Jameson's son. Interesting little fact, there is a character that turns round and looks at them, and at the time they had been filming The Punisher, the 2004 Thomas Jane Punisher film, and this is Thomas Jane's stunt double at this point that turns around and looks at the camera. So there is this sort of, is this or isn't this the Punisher kind of thing put into the film. It's done in such a way that you notice him. Do you know what I'm saying? And it's always been one of these. Yes, it is meant to be the Punisher at that point in the film. That's just a little, little tidbit of information for you. One of them nice little Easter eggs. So yeah, all in all, fantastic film. Again, the Alfred Molina is superb as Dr. Octopus, superbly cast, and really look forward to his return as this character in No Way Home. So yeah, all in all, fantastic film. Everyone in it gives a strong performance. And this is probably to date the best Spider-Man film that we have got, the best written Spider-Man film that we've got. Yeah, very good. Definitely the best of the first 5 Spider-Man films that were released. We'll have to see, won't we, as I'm re-watching. Some of them I haven't seen for some time. So anyway, that's my review for this film. I did watch it in 4K. Looks fantastic, sounds fantastic, all that sort of stuff. But yeah, so if you like that review, please consider hitting the subscribe button, hitting the notification bell, all that sort of stuff. You know what to do. Now, tomorrow will be Spider-Man 3. At this stage, I can't tell you whether I'm going to be watching the standard cut of the film or the editor's cut of the film. I may watch the editor's cuts because it's something I've never actually sat and watched. Now, I'm not particularly looking forward to going into this era of Spider-Man because this is where the Sony meddling stepped in. But we'll talk about that more on the next episode of A Tangled Web. This is AJ. Thank you for joining me, and I'll see you on the next one. Take care all, and goodbye.